Hello. Huh. Okay, my name is Robert Meekins, and this is the Seekers Reset channel. Um, and on this channel, um, there's an overview, or if it's not there yet, there will be an overview of what the purpose of this channel is. But as you can tell from the title, it is about the concept and, more importantly, the experience of what can be called a seeker's reset. Um, and the term seeker's reset refers to a spiritual seeker going through a reset. And it's a term that I haven't seen anyplace else. And if you have seen it, please feel free to email me and let me know where. But as far as I know, it's a term that my partner and I came up with about 3 to 4 years ago. I think about 3 years ago. And at the time, I thought that I had already experienced this reset. And I now know that I didn't. In fact, I was only just about to start it. So what exactly is this reset? Well, the first thing to bear in mind is that a reset has to be a reset, a full reset. It's not an improvement. It's not a refinement. It's not just a shift. It's a reset, a start over. Now, there's a question of where do you start over from? And we can come back to that later. But it is a starting over. And it's much like a rock bottom moment in a lot of ways. I've never hit rock bottom as like, let's say, a substance abuser, even though in my past I have a history of abusing certain substances, especially alcohol, and what you could call plant medicine, including cannabis. But I never experienced a rock bottom moment while I was abusing those substances. But it is similar to a rock bottom moment. As they say in 12-step parlance, life becomes unmanageable. Nothing seems to work anymore. Physically, you may no longer feel like you can manage your health properly. Everything you used to do may not be working. In my case, I cannot fix certain physical problems. Like, I've tried everything. And I keep finding myself back at like square one. Physically, you may also find that the way in which you are used to receiving or generating money is no longer working. Something has changed. Emotionally, you may feel like you are actually regressing. In fact, in every level, that will be the feeling. But emotionally, you will feel like you are potentially impotent. And I don't mean that in a sexual way, although that may be true also. But there will be a feeling of like, I feel like I cannot do the things that I need to do. Mentally, you will begin to recognize that your thoughts are meaningless in some ways and otherwise are in your way. But it may be very difficult to pull yourself away from them. And you may have felt in the past that your thoughts were incredibly valuable to you, or your ideas. and they may become increasingly difficult to turn into anything. So you may have incredible thoughts, incredible ideas, but they increasingly just are thoughts and ideas. And you may feel paralyzed to do anything with them, and yet feel obsessed by them at the same time. You may also begin to lose a lot of your memory. Things that you used to know, you just don't know anymore. It's not an Alzheimer's experience. It's a resetting experience. It begs the question of what dementia and Alzheimer's actually are. And spiritually, you will start to understand that you've been largely deluded in your search, your spiritual search, and that your motivations are not as pure as you thought, or as you tried to convince yourself and others. In fact, as will be discussed many times in different ways, the average seeker, including myself, generally is not sincerely seeking truth. The average seeker is partially seeking the truth, but in large part, he or she, we, are actually doing one of two things: trying to escape the truth of our lives, or seeking what we want to be truth, but what really would be something that validates our life, something that would give us power, something that we could use as some kind of as leverage to resume normal life in a position of power with those whom we believe are either wrong or who have in some way harmed us. I have experienced some of all of these things, and it's been incredibly painful. And prior in my life, I had gone through a number of what you could call awakenings, where I was awakened to things that were definitely not true in the world. Definitely not true. My awakenings prior to the past few years were experiences of discovering that many things were not real or not true, getting tastes of truth, but never coming into direct confrontation with it. And in large part, that is the impetus, the catalyst. You could say there are probably three primary catalysts, maybe four, that can initiate a seeker's reset. And these can initiate any kind of change in a person's life. But in the case of the seeker's reset, there may be some specific qualities to it. And one of my goals through these videos is to bring clarity where I can to people like me who are aware that they are going through this kind of reset, but it's just going nowhere. Meaning, like, you might feel like you've been in this reset for years, and in some ways it may just be getting worse, even though it feels like it feels like maybe improvement should be happening. But again, like in a rock bottom moment, there is a certain surrender that takes place. And the only thing that's going to differentiate between what I'm calling a seeker's reset and the average awakening or the average person who's an addict realizing they have no control, is intentionality. Meaning a true seeker, even though, as I've come to learn, that a true seeker is often extremely flawed, far more flawed than we realize. But a true seeker will have some sincere desire for truth and some sincere desire to grow up spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally, on every level, to find out what it means to be truly self-responsible, which is not the same as being successful, and it's not the same as having skills. It's not the same as having knowledge. It's not the same as having influence. It's very different. It can include those things. In fact, it likely will, but it is not the same. And so, whereas the average person going through a spiritual awakening or even a rock bottom moment, let's say from addiction, they lean more into the desire simply to get out of the mess and to get out of the pain. And this is different from to move into responsibility and to move into truth. The opportunity is available in that moment to anyone, but it's a movement. Do we move into the desire for truth, into the desire for self-responsibility at the highest level of what we're capable, or do we move into a desire simply for the pain to go away and not to lose everything else that's left in our lives? People, job, etc. Not that that's bad per se, but it doesn't necessarily allow for the full reset. And I'm personally experiencing this tension right now. But when you have this confrontation with truth, that's one and probably the primary way that you can start a seeker's reset. And for me, it was with divine truth. And divine truth is an actual subject taught by Jesus and Mary Magdalene, who are alive on this earth today. Yes, they've returned, not reincarnated, they've returned to teach this subject of divine truth that they once taught almost 2,000 years ago. And I have followed them, I've learned from them, I've been put in my place by them. I've met them in person, I've been to their home. And to this point, I have to tell you that I believe who they are. And far be it from me to be the final authority on that, but I am stating that directly. You can find information about them at divinetruth.com or on the Divine Truth YouTube channel. And I'll link those in the description. And you should know I have no technical or official affiliation with Divine Truth other than that I am studying it, and I have experienced quite a lot of what they offer already. The other ways that you can come to a seeker's reset is through a profound experience of love. Could be from another person, could be from God. Of course, tragedy can initiate this kind of experience, but usually that will simply crack you open to love or truth. And according to Divine Truth, these two things are essentially inseparable, that where there is truth, there is love. Where there is love, there is truth, which is a beautiful thing. But a seeker's reset and this confrontation with love, truth, God has the potential to change the course of our lives completely, in the physical realm and beyond, on the earth and in spirit, in soul, mostly in soul. The hardest part that I have found and is that it does require change on every level, and that change is not a change, and this is where so many addicts and other people going through moments of rock bottom in their lives miss the boat, is that they don't recognize that the moment is not a moment simply to become a functional member of society. The moment is a moment of beginning to discover who you really are and taking responsibility for oneself in ways that are not even asked of us in society. And the best seekers generally have known this. Whether they have acted maturely is different. But the best seekers have known that something is not right about the standards by which society functions. That we're capable of more, that we are created for more. And yet so many of us seekers don't live up to that until we are forced, which means that we really lack what divine truth would call humility and sincerity when we are seeking. Because if we had humility and sincerity, we would find the truth. We would begin to feel love and become more loving without being forced into a corner, as for instance I have. My Seeker's Reset was catalyzed first by the relationship with my partner. Well, actually, I guess you could say it started even before that, but I thought I was at my best. So another quality of a Seeker's Reset that's different from, say, a typical rock bottom is that quite often it's possible you could be doing really, really well and then experience the crash. Now, the thing is that what the crash begins to show you is that you weren't really doing well. You were living a life without a foundation. You were living a life based in lies and manipulation and falseness, what divine truth refers to as facade. You were living a life that concealed everything you didn't want to see. In psychological and New Age terminology, you could call that the shadow. In divine truth terminology, you would call it sin. And so sometimes our lives can seem very, very good, and then it blows up because underneath there's this festering pain and sin, immorality that just explodes when given the opportunity, when a trigger like a tragedy, a breakup in my case, an extended breakup occurs. Could be financial issues that occur. And it's rarely a moment of miraculous transformation, like the Saul on the road to Damascus becoming Paul. It's rarely a moment like that. And most of us as seekers, we actually have our sights set on that kind of moment. Like we imagine that there's going to come a moment when finally something shifts and everything is better forever after. And I don't believe that that happens. Although in the future, maybe it can. If people like us really learn how, really complete this process and then begin to lead and share it, people may be able to go through it more smoothly. But for many of us today, it is quite harrowing. And this is a place where we can discuss that without pitying ourselves. And as is so often said, the truth will set you free, and it will. And even divine truth asserts that. But it often will piss you off first. And if it doesn't piss you off, it will reveal how pissed off you already are at the world, at the people that you believe have harmed you, at God, at yourself, at everything. In my case, I have had so much bitterness and resentment and anger and rage that I've worked through a little bit. But I had no idea how full of those things that I was. And I had suppressed it with so many different things. So this is an overview of what the Seeker's Reset is about. In essence, it's really what you make of it. I believe that these moments of reset occur all the time, but most of us are either not paying attention, we're misunderstanding it, we lack the humility and the sincerity to capitalize on it, or we're simply numb and dulled by our addictions, even healthy ones, exercise, food, good food, health, work, seemingly decent yet codependent relationships, romance, idealism. There are many addictions emotionally, spiritually, sexually that may look healthy or noble or at least acceptable on the surface. And divine truth delves into that significantly. So our challenge and my challenge as I sit in front of you today is to move towards love and truth, and thus towards God, to restore what those things mean, to develop humility and sincerity, to live morally, not religiously, actually morally, knowing what's good, knowing what's bad, knowing what's right and wrong, what's true and false, what's loving and unloving. The education that we all can have on earth. And the only place I've begun to find that, and I don't think there will be anywhere else, is through divine truth. So please look into that below. I wrestle with it. I will wrestle with it during these videos. I don't know that I believe everything or everything about Jesus and Mary. I don't. But I do know it's essential to study that truth. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you will interact with me when you feel called. You can send me an email at any time. The address is below. And if you're in the midst of this right now, I hope that this is a valuable piece in your puzzle. Thank you. Welcome to the Seeker's Reset.